If you're still sending your board the full deck before a meeting, you're setting yourself up for failure. Here's why. People will forge their own conclusion without you. And by the time you walk into the room, the narrative has already slipped away. The smarter alternative is a one-page executive summary. A story on one page that frames the discussion and keeps the board focused on the right decision. And in this video, I'll show you exactly how to build one. What to say, how to say it, and how to show it. This video is for CFOs and FP&A leaders who want to stop overwhelming their boards with data. Instead, they want to give them clarity, speed, and focus. If that's you, hit subscribe so you don't miss future content on financial storytelling at the board level. An executive summary isn't a formality. It's not the warm-up before the slides. It's a document that sets the tone before the meeting even begins. But here's the trap with sending the decks. You hand over 30 slides, or in best case, and everyone arrives with a different interpretation. You've lost control before you even say a word. A single-page executive summary does the opposite. It aligns the room around one story. It says, here's the outcome. Here are the 2 or 3 drivers that matter. Here's the business impact, and here are the decisions you, audience, are there for. That's why, in my experience, it's the only pre-read worth sending. Yes, I know there are a lot of debates about what should or shouldn't be sent before the meeting, but I'll save that for a future video. So let's start with the content. What actually belongs in an executive summary. The first thing is the headline. When I say headline, don't go and think that you are going to write executive summary or Q3 results. That's not a message, that's a title. A real headline tells the story in one sentence. Outcome, driver, implication. For example, Q3 EBITDA will land 6% below plan, driven by UK churn and input costs. That's a message people can remember and repeat. If you want, you can add the now what, something like putting financial year bonus at risk without intervention. But sometimes that's a bit too long for one line. Right under the headline, add one line of context, where we are versus the plan, or last year. It's a simple anchor. And then you move to the key drivers. Here you have to be ruthless. 2 or 3 maximum. Of course, there's no rule, but if you limit yourself, you have to think about the classic EBITDA or revenue, and that add the operational driver that will matter in your story. If it's churn, then it's going to be churn. If it's related to the units that are sold, the sales, the order intake, anything that relates to the story that you are going to talk about. Anything else will be noise. So avoid the usual packing where we will put all the drivers that you follow up. After that, translate into business impact. Boards don't think in variances, they think in outcomes. So instead of saying margin is 1.2% below plan, you should say this limits our ability to fund project X or to go for initiative Y. Then comes the decision section. 2 or 3 options with trade-offs. And in this case, I really want you to think you have to quantify the information in both sense. For example, you have an option A, cut OPEX by 500K. Think about what it will have as impact in revenue. For example, the retention may drop by 200K. Option B, you invest 100K in marketing. Well, there will be an outcome in the income, like potential 600K recovery from new customers. The point is not to impress them with a model. It's to frame the choice, give them enough information so their decision is eased. And finally, 2 small but critical boxes. You can even put that in one box. Risks and the next steps. Risks because someone will ask anyway. And the next step because you need to close with action. And what if you don't have the next steps yet? Well, it's perfectly fine, right? The next steps are to be aligned during the meeting. That tells the board the purpose is to decide together and that it will not be a simple information sharing. Heads up! If you want to go deeper, I created a free 7-email course called the Financial Storytelling Starter Pack. You get 1 short video a day for a week. It covers lessons like why storytelling is your most underrated skill, how to structure updates that boards actually follow, and even what to say when you're not sure of the answer. Go and get it on thefinancecircle.com/starterpack, and you can also find the link in the description. Now back to our video. Now let's talk about how you phrase it. Boards don't want to dig for the punchline, so always lead with the headline. That's the pyramid principle. Conclusion first, and then the detail only if needed. Whatever happens, be concrete. Instead of writing revenue is under pressure, well, write revenue downside of 3.5 million euros if the churn trend continues. Use contrast statements. For example, we expect the churn to stabilize. Instead, it spiked by 2%, which drove a 3 million revenue gap. Contrast makes people listen. Super important, you also have to translate finance into a board language. Not basis points, but cash flow impact. Not variance, but customer attrition. And one important point is to make your assumptions visible. If your forecast assumes raw material prices stay flat, write it. Boards hate hidden assumptions. And finally, always end with a clear ask. If you want alignment on cost cuts versus growth investments, say it. Even if you don't know the next steps yet, frame the conversation goal. Something like, today's decision is whether to protect margin or protect market share. That's enough to focus the room. Now, when you design an executive summary, you have to think of it as a story on a page. At the top, write your headline, okay? No title, no generic executive summary, but something really concrete, like Q3 EBITDA down 8% versus the plan, driven by churn and cost inflation. Now, you can complete it with just under the headline, adding your key metrics. That's the basics, but go a bit above the usual EBITDA and revenues and show 1 or 2 additional numbers that are operational and put it there. On the left side of the page, highlight your implications. What are the key takeaways that you found? These are the drivers and their business impact. It can be a text, you have to put figures, you can use bullet points, doesn't really matter, just don't use jargon, don't use no filler words. The most important is to be concrete and to the point. And then you move to the right side of the page by giving the resolution. Just the options and the next steps. What are the 2 or 3 options with their trade-off and their quantification? Plus a clear tag at the bottom whether the decision is needed for this moment or not. That shows the page is here to drive a decision, not just an information that they could have read in a mail. The rule is simple. Headline at the top, below the main drivers, impacts on the left, and actions on the right. 1 page, 1 story. Do this, and the board will know exactly what happened, why it matters, and what needs to happen next. All before you even start to speak. And then you can focus on the discussion points. Each that we all want as finance leaders. So that's how you write an executive summary as a finance leader. A story on a page that states the narrative instead of letting the narrative run without you. Lead with a headline, show the key drivers, spell out the business impacts, and give the options so that you always have next steps. Use it as the only pre-read. Keep the full deck for the discussion or even in the backup. That way you control the conversation instead of letting the slides control you. And don't forget, if you want to go further, you have at your disposal the Financial Storytelling Starter Pack, a 7-day free course that arrives directly in your mailbox every day during 1 week. And if you want your whole team to be trained to financial storytelling, to topics like this, but also on how to design slides, on how to deliver the best presentation and how to master their message, just contact me. You will find also the link below. I will offer a tailored training session for your teams.